Growing up, I was a big fan of fantasy media. Hell, I still am. This is something that is true for me, and it is especially noticeable when you look at my favorite video games, as my favorite video game franchise is Fire Emblem. But I also love other franchises within the genre, such as Final Fantasy, Bravely Default, The Legend of Zelda, Baldur's Gate, and more. Whilst I consume fantasy media the most in video games, I have consumed my fair share of fantasy media in other areas as well. But when it comes to anime, I actually lost a lot of interest in fantasy media in the early 2020s, and so I consumed less of it. Despite this, some of my favorite anime include fantasy shows such as Spice and Wolf, Maquia, Fullmetal Alchemist, Brotherhood, and Frieren. However, I have recently been trying to explore a fantasy anime that I have missed out on over the years, as well as new ones that are airing. And amongst these new ones is one that stands above the rest as something truly fantastic. This is an anime by the name of Witch Hat Atelier. There is one more anime airing this season that also stands out above the rest, which is a fantasy, and that is Demons of the Shadow Realm. And whilst I might make a video on it in the future, it won't be the topic of today's video. With that said, let me explain briefly what Witch Hat Atelier is about. Something that is good to know is that I'll keep it as spoiler free as I can, so that you can still enjoy the show yourself if you haven't watched it yet. Witch Hat Atelier is an anime about a girl by the name of Coco. Coco dreams of one day becoming a witch, however, she is told by her mother that she can't become one as she simply was not born with the powers of a witch. This, however, changes one day when a mage by the name of Keyfree stops by to help some people. Coco ends up spying on him when he casts a spell and ends up seeing something pretty interesting about it. You see, witches normally cast spells in secret so that others won't see, well, when they do their work. And there are reasons for that. But this also means that people don't know what it takes to actually cast, well, spells or magic. So Coco ends up finding out that all it takes is drawing with a special kind of ink. Coco ends up using some ink she was given many years prior to try some spells she finds in a book that she was gifted along with the ink. And when she does this, she ends up casting a spell that petrifies her whole house, including her mother. Keyfree manages to just in the nick of time save her from the same fate as her mother. This leads Coco to decide to become Keyfree's apprentice so that she can one day save her mother from the petrification. I won't go into more details about the story than that to avoid spoilers as much as possible. But now you might be asking, okay Gabe, but what is it that makes it so great? Well, let me explain at least why I think it is fantastic and why I think it might even be the best anime this year. Although we do have quite a bit more of the year left, so take it with a pinch of salt as it is early June as of writing this script. Witch Hat Atelier does a fantastic job at capturing your attention and providing a delightful story for you to enjoy throughout a variety of different means. The world in itself in Witch Hat Atelier feels truly alive and is really intriguing in seeing how the many characters within the world live in it. The environment oozes with personality, and the writer behind the manga, Gamo Mashirahama, has done a great job in making the different locations stick out with their own personality. This goes from the cozy little house that Keyfree and his apprentices live in, to the genuinely visually stunning Dada range, all the way to things such as the town by the name of Calm. These are far from the only locations in the story, but the fact that each location in the story manages to stand out on their own in one way or another really shows how good of a job Shirahama has done at creating the world and its many locations. Whilst the locations in the show stand out, it is far from the only thing that does. The characters in the show are phenomenal and really do feel like they could be actual people in various different ways. This goes not only for Coco as a main character, but also for the supporting cast, such as Aga's clear jealousy at first when she gets introduced. Once we get to know her a little bit better, we find out that she is actually fairly caring and a pretty motivated witch, who truly wants to learn everything needed to become a better witch. I also really love Tartal as a character, who is a character who at first glance is just there to help his grandfather with his work, but he also clearly wants to one day become a talented mage, but keeps on being told that he never will become one due to being born with a kind of color blindness that makes everything look silver. There are many incredibly lovable characters in the show, and going into detail about all of them would make this video far too long, but those are the characters I appreciate the most so far. But I do have a feeling that this will change as more of the story unfolds, as only 10 episodes are out so far. Which gets me to my main gripe with Witch Hat Atelier. In my last video I talked about how I feel like a lot more anime need 24 episode seasons, and Witch Hat Atelier is a great example of that. Don't get me wrong, I love Witch Hat Atelier so far. Don't get me wrong, I love Witch Hat so far. but I do also feel like we have barely gotten anywhere in the story, and so I would have loved to see a 24 episode season instead of the 13 we are getting, or at least get a 60-minute first episode similarly to Oshinoko Season 1 in Sentenced to be a Hero, as it just gives you more time to truly get invested in the show. Maybe I am too used to having watched anime in the 2010s, but I truly feel like 12 episode seasons in the last couple of years have been hurting a lot of fantastic anime, more than it helped them, but that's more of a topic to talk about at another point in time. The soundtrack in Witch Hat is amazing, and composer Yuka Kitamura did a truly wonderful job at capturing the mystical yet exciting world of Witch Hat with the music they provided, which is also to be expected as their previous work on games such as Elden Ring, Bloodborne, and Sekiro is genuinely fantastic. I am also happy to see that Eve did the opening and that this is a collaboration with Sui from Yoroshika, as I love both Eve and Yoroshika, even though it is far from my favorite song by Eve, and it is not even my favorite song with Eve in collaboration with Sui, although it is a fantastic opening for the anime, just not quite my cup of tea. What the opening theme does so well, however, is the way it captures feelings of adventure, magic, and fantasy through some really cool use of string instruments, capturing the atmosphere of the show in a fantastic way. Something I really want to talk about in the case of this show, however, is the ending theme, Tada Utsukushi Noroi by Nakamura Hak. The song is a perfect fit as an ending theme for the anime, but something I truly appreciate is the emotional singing done by Nakamura. And it really reminds me of the music that one of my personal favorite artists, Minami, makes, as she too is amazing at capturing the feelings she tries to portray in her vocals. Now let's move on before I go into an entire music tangent about artists I love. That's actually a pretty good video idea. I guess I know what I'm doing after this. Let's talk about the animation in Witch Hat Atelier for a bit. When it comes to the animation in Witch Hat Atelier, it looks absolutely stunning. I think the most impressive part animation-wise is the opening and the way it uses things like manga panels to bring itself to life by making it look like a storybook in a really breathtaking way. This does not mean, however, that the rest of the animation in the show is bad, far from it. The animation all around is stunning, and there are multiple scenes I could point to and say, hey look, this is sick. And that to me really shows how much the team behind the show has worked on it. And it is genuinely beautiful in so many ways that I am happy to have gone in to see it. With that said, let's talk about the voice acting. I will be talking about the dub when it comes to this, as it is very rare for an anime to have bad, well, Japanese voice acting. And I also do watch a lot of anime dubbed, as I watch with others who just don't like watching subs, or I do it whilst multitasking. When it comes to the dub for this anime, there is just one thing I want to say to start off. A primarily British cast? What is this? Xenoblade? I do overall think the dub in this show is amazing, although if you are unlike me and aren't used to hearing various British and Irish accents from growing up with Scottish godparents as well as competing in esports with British players from various regions in the UK and having friends who are Irish, you might have a bit of a hard time to understand what is being said, even though they seem to have toned it down a little to make it more understandable. I am someone who does appreciate nuances and having various accents in an anime in these type of ways, where it is different regions of the same country, but I do also understand why some people might struggle just a bit with it. I do think the voice actors have done a fantastic job voicing their characters, and the main ones that really stood out to me in the dub are Kiefer and Richie, whose voice actors have done a fantastic job playing their respective characters. With all of that said, Witch Hat Atelier is a fantastic story all around. Does it have its flaws? Yes, but what show doesn't? I genuinely think this show is just all around enjoyable, and it is really cozy to lay down in bed during my evenings after work when a new episode airs and just watch an episode to relax. I actually at first considered not making this video, as I just felt like I had nothing to bring to the table that others hadn't already. But then I realized something. That's not what I do here. I don't talk about something because others don't do it. I talk about it because I enjoy it, and because I like the piece of media I cover, and since I genuinely love Witch Hat Atelier, I decided to make a video about why, and this is that video. I genuinely hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you did, subscribe for more content like this. With that said, what are your opinions on Witch Hat Atelier? I'd love to know. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.